Alright, we're back. You have arrived in Baldurs Gate. Of course, the city is a massive city. It was once one of the more powerful states in all of the Sword Coast. Now, as the capital of the kind of Coastway region, it has found itself still the heart of the entire region. The region itself is sort of like a region under their control, and then one major city. So I would describe it as like a city that is it's more massive and more spread. It probably has less of like a high-rise kind of area. So like you probably have your downtown area where you have a lot of buildings, but I kind of think of it like, you know, how like downtown downtown LA has like its big skyscrapers, and then it's got this huge spread of like region.
Yeah. Huge skyscrapers. There's like 5 of them.
Yeah. There's got some skyscrapers and then just spread out. I kind of feel like that's kind of the modern equivalent to Baldur's Gate, except it's probably got a little larger of a downtown kind of area. It is still under the power... The Lord's Alliance that originally kind of ruled over it still has control over this region now, though it's kind of spread out and has more members to it, kind of thing. The Alliance kind of increased. And the Alliance members that were along the coastline anyway, you know, they've kind of broken apart. I'd say like the original Alliance members were using Baldur's Gate as a high point for like lords from all up and down the Sword Coast. Since the Civil War 1,000 years ago, only those from this kind of region are in this area, and so it's like each has their own little kind of court almost. The things have certainly changed in the way that their government here functions a lot. Anyway, the city is quite spread out. Still kind of embarking from the original core of the city out into various regions. Can I just have an actual map of the city? Apparently not.
Uh-oh.
They give me a lot of region maps where Baldur's Gate shows up. Oh, that's actually a pretty good map there. Thank you very much, people that did that there. So, it, kind of like... The original city was kind of like in a crescent shape, around like a kind of like central docks area. I think this is a good one. Baldur's Gate city map. Let's try that. Yes. Kind of, and so it has evolved and spread out from there, kind of branching out from there. So you have your kind of like downtown area that's kind of outside a lot of the old city, kind of like the old city kind of evolved into more of like the downtown area. So you got a mixture of like a couple high-rise buildings and like some of the old buildings still in the region, and then it spreads out into like the mess of things. If you're going to look into someone, you probably want to go into the central part of the town. The areas where there's more, as I said, the high-rises. That's the thought, at least. So what is your plan?
Is there anywhere we can get like proper like maps for us to know where things are? Where do we have them already?
A city map probably exists. You could probably get one that you can kind of see on your phones, but again, it's like it's not great on your phones. Phones are never like a large screen, so you can't really get like a huge amount of details on it. But if you were navigating to certain places, you could get them on your phone. Otherwise, what you're going to probably have to do is probably go into some place that might sell maps. There's some gas stations around. Do you know if you're planning on staying in Baldur's Gate, or are you planning on just trying to see if you can find it and head on right away?
I suspect it would take at least one night, you know.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't even take a full night, we can just go do touristy things.
Yeah. We could be tourists for one instead of endangering villages.
Instead of endangering villages and our own health and safety.
And killing a lot of gnomes.
The gnomes.
The gnome bodies just well, they really did pile up. Actually, I was gonna say they didn't, but then I'm like, oh no, they did pile up.
And then they got smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still very traumatized.
Yeah, good times. I mean, bad times. Cough, cough, cough. So yeah, what kind of place do you want to stay at? You can probably find some nice small motels in the outskirts of the city. You could find something a little better as you're going farther into the city. There's definitely a lot of regions in Baldur's Gate as it is. You can kind of go from... This map is good, but it's also... I can't read it. The problems of maps. Oh, that's why. You want to sell me a map? No, thank you. Sell me map, people. Just keep trying to, like, get me to spend on money. Anyway. That is not a helpful map. I'm trying to find a helpful map here, and I am failing so well. Okay. Yeah. Probably now a lot of the regions have evolved out of the original regions of the original Baldur's Gate. Like, they've expanded outwards. So, like, rather than being like districts in a town, they're now almost like towns on their own. So, like, Brampton as a district it's like there's an only section of Brampton, and there's Eastway, and there is Heapside, Temples, Manorborn, Seatown, which kind of like extends around the coast. There's only two that a couple of regions that didn't kind of get their own kind of actual regions. If you would look into the old Baldur's Gate, Bloombridge in the steppes, because they were in the core of the city, didn't really expand out any with the expansion of the entire city. They kind of didn't like evolve into their own regions. So the steppes is actually now incorporated into the entire southern part of the old city, and Bloombridge is the northern part. Because I think that's how this is supposed to be. I'm not sure which is north and south on this map. It does not... Okay, it's east and west. I'm sorry. The steps would be east, Bloombridge is west. I found a map that actually had a compass on it. It's not a good compass, but it's got a compass.
It's good enough.
Point it in some direction.
I'm trying to find a good map here of Baldur's Gate so I can use it to help myself.
One day.
One day. So what's the plan? You're coming in probably towards Brampton, actually. The main highway leads up towards Brampton, past Eastway, and then Heapside, before the highway itself heads north again. So it kind of goes through those three regions that are kind of like, you know, your suburb regions now outside of Baldur's Gate proper, the central city. The temples region is known for its old temples, which still exist, even though many of them don't see worship. They're more tourist sites. The The Wide is known for its actual. I'm gonna pull an LA here. The Wide is known for its movies and television.
Ooh.
So Baldurs Gate films a lot of things.
There's a big Baldurs Gate sign up on the hill.
They don't have hills nearby.
No. There's a Bollywood sign.
Oh.
Balderwood sign. Yeah, Balderwood.
Yes.
No. They have that up on like a tower in the middle of the port. You know, so like they have like one of like the old like lighthouse towers that was in the center of port has like a big sign on it that says Balderwood.
Oh no.
Uh-huh.
That's perfect.
And just to be weirder, it's not one row, it's 2 rows.
Oh no, those monsters. How could they do this?
No. Despite the fact that I live in LA IRL, I've never actually been to the Hollywood sign.
Damn,
Anyway. It's something I realized.
As someone that has driven through plenty parts of Philadelphia, when there's an entire region called Northeast Philadelphia, that is basically massive amounts of suburbs that you drive through in order to get, like, anywhere, the city is insane. So I can understand that, because there are regions of, like, having years of visiting parts of Philadelphia. There's entire regions I have never even been near.
Yeah. It's so funny, because it just feels so much less special, because I live here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's how the whole of Manhattan feels to me. It's like, yeah, it's got big towers, so.
Yeah.
But then I go anywhere else, and then I realize not a lot of places actually have skyscrapers. They're not very common, apparently.
No.
It's very weird.
No, like, yeah. New York ruins you on skyscrapers. It's filled with them. You know, the only skyscrapers in Philadelphia, Center City. There's a few of them. And even then, they ain't that big.
Everywhere's so flat.
Mm-hmm. Oh my, it's a 10-story tall building. How tall? Freaking how it is. Anyway.
See, I always felt like LA would have more skyscrapers if it weren't for the fact that we have earthquakes.
Oh,
That
That's
probably
bad.
helps. Like, if you ever watch those shows that tell you about, like, how to, like, earthquake-proof a skyscraper, it's expensive. It's possible,
Very.
but it's very expensive. Anyway. But,
Continuing.
continuing.
The Temple District actually sounds like a great place to go for old lineage.
You could drive through Baldurs Gate proper. As I said, you'd have to get off the highway and head in through town. But you could definitely, using your phone's map out, heading to the Temples District. Temples District actually tends to be a very small district. The original Temple District, parts of it are now integrated into Bloombridge. Like the very original one. But the newer ones that was built out after the expansion of Baldur's Gate certainly still kept to its name. At least the last, 1,500 years until, like, religion started really breaking down completely. So, like, if I would use the Baldur's Gate map, the Temples is the original Temples District, the very old one, which still parts of still remain, are now part of Bluebridge. The Citadel District actually separates it out from there still. So the Citadel District expanded out and is actually a kind of military base kind of area now that functions as the main military base in all of the region here, in the Coastway. That's actually surprisingly, a big chunk of it's in the center of Baldur's Gate. Now, granted, they don't have their their airports and stuff for that portion of it, but like their main army base is in the center of the city. Interestingly enough, because of the way that things evolved, and the temples continued to the east of that region, the new temples. So it almost surrounds the Citadel District and the Citadel area now, as it is. if you were to head to it, it lives up to its name to a good degree. There's a number of major, like, roads that have kind of been built out when the expansions happened. Like, the newer areas have much more city planning than the old place. Like if you're to, like, old areas of a city where, like, the roads are awful, and then you're to new areas of the city where, like, the roads are good, it's that kind of thing, too. You know, much more city planning. There seems to be 3 main highways that there's a lot of old temples and churches are positioned around. Some of them seem more of like tourist stops than others. Others seem like they might still have some use to it. The central thing is a large church complex, I'll even call it, to the Church of All. That seems to be the central portion of the Temples District as it is now. It's a newer building that was put in probably about a few hundred years ago. So it's still, like, relatively newer in comparison to a lot of things here. But since that's been the kind of combined religion of most folks here in Faerun as it is in the modern day in Toril, that kind of evolved and ended into an actual religious site as it is now, with massive parking lots and stuff, too. Of course, there are people that live in the Temples District. There's plenty of housing and stuff, too. There's a nice big shopping mall in the area here. There's some restaurants, a couple stores, a few hotels, and a few motels on the outskirts of it. So you can go hotel, you can go motel if you want to, if you're going to stay in the Temples District.
Well, we did just buy a car, so we probably want to go for the cheaper one, I expect.
Probably. Also, it's not like we're a stranger to motels.
This is true.
Yeah.
You better understand them than you did when you originally showed up here in this world.
Yeah. We're not gonna set
Even then,
any
they're probably
policy.
slightly more comfortable. I mean, there's such a thing as too many amenities when you're used to.
Like, you're probably still, like, sometimes getting used to the amenities of, like, just being in an apartment somewhere, which is, like, a step up from, like, what you understood. You're like, yeah. Like, you get down on the bed and you're like, I miss... Just, it's like you miss the,
I miss swamp. I miss wet, bug-filled swamps.
Or, like, you're in the soft bed and you're like, I miss my hammock. Or my, like, you know, like, God. Brain fart. It's not a hammock. It's building your own bed. Just, it's the piece of cloth between wood.
Uh-huh.
See, my brain is completely farted today for it. You know, I know what I'm talking about. Not a hammock. Is it a hammock? No.
You're nearly there.
Oh, God damn it. Nope. I lost it. Please, someone save me from my entire torment of my brain farting and anyway. Rough bed sleeping. Mm-hmm. You missed the hard and horrible beds that were like, you know, you were used to them. Anyway. I have 2. I own 2. They're like, you build them for, like, camping. I can't remember what the hell they're called. Cot! Oh my God, cot! You know it's bad when I forget the word cot.
Oh, today is definitely a day.
Oh my God.
Doing our best out here, man.
I'm like going through all this stuff. I'm getting all the details, and then I get caught up in caught.
Yep. I fucking feel that.
It's like you can go through all the details and you can think of it all and just build it all. Okay, so you can find this interesting, like, there's definitely like an air of tourist trap to this section of the city. I'll say, kind of like, I'll say like there's probably an air almost of like, not like for like the gambling, but like the Las Vegas Strip, how there's like a lot of big sites, and there's, because it is the Temples District, there's a lot of like also these small chapels for getting people married and stuff. So it's like you went to like the big religious place, you went to temples and got married kind of thing. And so there's a lot of like cheap wedding places. And so there is like part of the motel you're staying at has a chapel attached to it.
Oh. Well, none of us are allowed to go out drinking tonight.
The motel is kind of like an L-shaped motel. So it kind of has like a parking lot. So it's got the chapel and then like kind of like the offices and then like kind of like area of parking. This one doesn't have a pool with it. This motel at least. It's got ice machines and some vending machines on the outside. It actually does have a little like bar and cafe area next to connected to the offices and kind of in between the chapel and stuff. Mainly because, you know, you go get married, you go off drinking then. And getting some partying. So they do have like a little like cafe area with some very loose food. Nothing super great, decent stuff, but lots of drinks. By the time you check in, I'm gonna say it's kind of like late afternoon, getting around times like kind of like 5, 6 kind of evening when you're finally like getting in. Traffic in the city was definitely heavy. It's a big city, so it took you a little while to get to this area where you were planning on staying, and you found this place pretty quickly though once you got into the Temples district, into Temples region.
Yeah.
There'll be a man at the place. He'd be like, kind of be, welcome to Temples. Will you be staying long with us? Welcome to Motel 9 Temples.
Probably just 1 or 2 days.
Well, we can put you down for 1 right now, and if you need to stay longer, just check in with us in the morning. I understand sometimes travelers are here, and maybe as you know, here in Baldurs Gate, we are very open-ended about our things, so if the 3 of you are planning for a wedding, just check in over there. You know, I know plenty of people travel from all across Faerun to get their marriages here, especially with Baldurs Gate's open marriage laws.
Don't think we'll do that,
I
but
don't think Versailles has a very clear concept of this.
Mm-hmm. It's more like, it's like not only is it like you're 3 women that he's saying like you're all getting married to each other.
Yeah, no. It's like I'm not sure.
Or if you're just here for sometimes as a tourist, we do have a couple of pamphlets there. Don't worry. Just take what you want from the board there. There's a whole bunch of them for the various regions of town here. Welcome to Baldurs Gate.
Hey.
Your room 119. There's your key. You'll at least have to pay for the 1 day down. And let them know how many extra days you're staying then, and have to pay when you check out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, all right. It's a motel room. It's like probably about equivalent to the one you stayed in before, but like again, that was a cheap desert hotel. This is at least a city motel, so certainly, the one before, I don't know which one is shadier. The one in the middle of the desert, where people might go for shady things, or the one in the middle of the marriage capital, where just things might happen. Anyway,
Yeah, I definitely think the city one's shadier.
this one's probably shadier.
Yeah.
Probably more blacklighty. You know.
Yeah.
There's also definitely a lot more bed spring noises.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the one before, no one was at unless they were there for something like that. Anyway, that's out in the middle of the desert. No one comes to.
No.
Anyway, so there is a prominent nightlife to the town too here. You know, I'd say, like, most of it seems to be partying, you know, kind of like, almost like, I call it free love, you know, free love at temples, you know. Temples, come for the history, stay for the love.
Oh, that's what they're doing at them now, huh?
I'm making that their, like, slogan now. Come for the history, stay for the love.
Oh, God.
But you can spend an enjoyable night. What is your plan when you wake up in the morning? Also,
I don't like the way you said enjoyable night.
The cafe bar has some decent food if you want to pick up dinner. You know, it's not bad, as I said. It certainly is better than nothing.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend time researching we're kind of like the oldest, but still like in touch with temple is. Because again, back in the day, temples were probably the ones who did a lot of, well, temples or the state would have been the ones who did a lot more record keeping.
Certainly there are a large number of... The oldest temples that still exist in Baldurs Gate are a couple of, like, ancient ones that are now pure tourist, that are within the new Bloom Bridge. Kind of like where the old Temples District incorporated in Blue Bridge when everything spread out. The oldest in the new region here, there are some very old ones, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm talking about the straight-on, like, still, like, it may be touristy, but it also still kind of has people who are there who care about the history of it.
Yes. If you look into it, please roll me a history check. We could say you can use the pamphlets in your phone combined to look this up.
Okay. I'm gonna cast guidance on myself.
Okay.
Realize it's a thing I can do.
It's a thing that can occasionally be done. Okay. Yeah.
I did 1d4.
Mm-hmm. That 1d4 is probably helpful. Alright, just looking into old... You will be able to find out about a few of the old...
Oh wow, that was bad. That was really bad. I didn't actually look at it until just now.
5. Yeah. There are only a few churches that are actually left that are actually functioning churches here in temples that actually give services. It seems to be like you can find out about 4 of them. 2 of them do it for more show than anything. Only 2 seem to actually have a religious connotation to them. The 2 that are for show, give me a second here to give you the full list, there is a temple to Azuth that gives on for kind of show, and one that is to Bane that gives things for show. There are only 2 that actually give real services. One is to Ao, the Overgod, because it's technically a little bit newer. It seems to be a group that believe that, as Ao is supposed to be the Overgod and sort of like the top of the pantheon kind of thing, they see him as an incarnation of the Church of All, in a way, in the olden days. So they still, like, look to him So it's like it's almost a sector of the Church of All that still believes that, like, it's that Ao is like kind of like, believing that, like, the differences between, like, Judaism and what they believe. That's not great. I don't have a good comparison. Seeing him more like as a Jesus-y figure, rather than just going on about God. We'll say that kind of thing, And there actually is an active church to that gives thanks to Umberly. Still too. The malicious goddess of the sea. For reasons. I'll just say reasons.
Just because you feel like it.
I don't know,
It's still a port town.
It's still a port town. She's still the goddess of the sea. Like, her monikers were the bitch queen. So, yeah. That was one of her titles. She lived up to it, etc., etc. But yeah, those are the 4, in a way, active churches that you're able to find out about. Mainly because, like, one of the brochures to, like, the temple district talked about this, like, and, like, listed a couple of the deities and, like, that you could, like, check out the temples to. It gave a lot of the common ones. Theoretically, there's uncommon ones. Like, Asmodeus is not mentioned in that list, though.
Oh.
Wow. I feel cheated.
To be fair, Asmodeus really didn't like churches.
Mm-hmm. And
it only had Asmodeus himself only had a few very specific cults. Funny enough, he was more akin to spreading atheism rather than people following him.
Well, like, because even though he was technically a deity by the end there, he could get by on just purely being the Lord of Devils, other than being a deity.
Well, that's the thing is even though he became a deity,
needed god power.
Even though he became a deity, he actually kind of like shunned. I read a bit about it. He shunted his power to like not have. Basically, he's the only one who gains power from those who don't follow anyone. He basically consumes the souls of those who don't follow anyone.
He's
to gain power.
A jerk.
So spreading
Just
atheism
saying.
is actually his kind of thing.
Just saying, he's a jerk. Anyway, so yeah, so that's what you're able to find out.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I also would like to look into like potential libraries that may be old and keep old records.
All right. That might be another history check because there really isn't a knowledge local. Thanks, 5th edition. Where's my knowledge local? Oh, but it's local to wherever you're from. Anyway, if you're looking through your
again.
Okay.
12.
Okay. There is a national library in the town. You'd have to head into the old center town proper to get to it. It would be in actually is in the old in Steps, as it is now. The new Steps, as it kind of expanded out. There's that there too. There's supposed to be a library that does not have access to the public at Rasmus Tower, because it's more of a tourist place now. Ramazith Tower. If I'm pronouncing it, Ramazith Tower. Yep. Are you... You're probably dead, Rasmus. Let me just check. You're very dead. You're a human. Okay. Yes. Probably used magic to live a lot longer than he needed to. Anyway, yeah, Rasmus Tower has a library in it, but it's not accessible to public. Only some certain parts of it are accessible to tourists.
Make a deal. That sounds like the best place, though.
Yeah.
Because they have areas that are accessible, that actually might be where they keep some of the oldest stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do we know what kind of history is kept in there?
No idea. If you would look into it, I'll tell you that Rasmus controlled his tower for a number of years, and it actually continued on into one of his students. He did take on some students, and one of them inherited the tower upon his death. And I actually continued on a line for about a good number of spellcasters that each built upon the collections of the towers and took up the same job as Rasmus did during the time as a wizard within Baldurs Gate. A notable line of wizards. The unfortunate thing is, though, that when the last one of them didn't take a student on, and eventually gave it over to the city proper. And to... I have to remember important figures in the area, which I can't remember at all. Yay! Oh. They actually gave it over to the people of the High House of Wonders to look after it. Because of the number of relics that were there. They made a deal with them. The High House of Wonders and the Hall of Wonders still exist, but they are purely museums now. It's said that there's still a few of the faithful have gone that do small ceremonies there, but it's sort of like the people that are in... it's like... Think of a museum that's in a church that, like, most of the employees are just employees, but, like, the people that control it are probably, like, priests. You know. But they know it's pretty much a museum now. And it's gone, so they're okay with a little bit of money to keep them going.
Okay.
But yeah. The old High Hall probably exists, but whether or not there's anything of importance there is hard to say. Or the records were moved. The High Hall was the palace that controlled Baldurs Gate.
I think the tower would make the most sense because it was kept in a lineage for a long time, and they seemed, because it was a wizard's tower, they'd probably have a little bit more on the goings-on of people who might have some amount of demonic heritage.
Yep. And some of the, at least in the upper city, what was the upper city, there's still some places that are from the old days that, if any of you had ever visited Baldur's Gate that know about, that still exist in some form. They're very, like, I came to Baldur's Gate and I ate at the blah 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 kind of thing. You know, it's visiting, like, one of those, like, here in America or, like, in the world, like, visiting, like this tavern is, like, 1,000 years old if you're in Europe, or this, like, in here in America, this is, like, this was the Revolutionary War and did things in the Revolutionary War for us, because we're new. This is, like, 2,000 years ago, shady people ate here, you know, and it's famous for its things, you know, and now you could be there too.
World's shadiest food.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you know, there's like the Helm and Cloak, the Purple Worm Inn and Tavern, three old kegs, Let me tell you, staying at the Purple Word Inn is really expensive. Visiting the tavern, not so bad. Because it's authentic stays in an inn, as they call for it. You know, they book way ahead of time, you get some authentic, classic Baldurs Gate stays in the inn.
I'm a little concerned in what that entails, honestly.
They installed a toilet down out in one of the storage closets is now an actual toilet they installed, but the rooms themselves are just those one room in rooms that you'd think adventurers in a D&D world would have. Yeah.
Yeah, they converted one room into a bathroom, and then the rest are authentic.
Yeah, so it's like a group bathroom for whoever's staying there, kind of thing. A little bit like college dormy, but other than that, it's like authentic stays.
They just have speakers of pretend, cabin brawls going.
Yeah, all the music going like you'd have, and well, they actually might have live shows too of people doing classic instruments,
Oh.
Got those old-timey bards.
they're in costume too, and they're like, it's a living. They get into their jeans and shorts after they're done. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there like that kind of thing that exist. Anyway. But yeah, so the new Water Queen's house is the Temple of Umberlee. That still happens. Because Water Queen's house is the old one. It is not in existence anymore. There was, ironically, a flood happened.
Oh, please. Oh, no.
It was at the docks. There was a flood, probably caused by Umberlee. She's just a little angry about things. They're saying. Anyway. Well, the Elfsong Tavern is still around, too, if you want to visit that. Still known for its ghostly elven voice that goes. Probably a ghost now, I'm saying. Probably haunted.
Ooh.
Otherwise...
Probably a hired ghost at this point.
I guess at this point in time. Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, if they got Banshee, yeah, no, because this is the place where they filmed those the Banshee and the
yeah, the movies and stuff. Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
They got that studio where the Hob and the Gob is being filmed too.
Can we go be part of the live audience?
Sure.
Yeah, we have to visit.
It's like information first, live audience later. All right. So you're going to though head for Rasmus Tower.
Ooh.
So the next day, kind of in the morning, you all get up, get yourselves together, and you can head out to.
How about we take our second break, right?
Oh God, yes, we're close enough to the second break. That's a good idea. We'll take it a little early
seemed like
here.
a good time. So.
I didn't notice the time. I was distracted by craziness and figuring out where to go and giving you options. Alright, so yeah, we're going to take our second break here. It's a little early for our kind of timings, but, we'll just go into our last hour then. So if you need to use the bathroom, grab a snack or drink or any kind of, food, water, or things like that you need, go ahead and do it. Come back in a little bit, and we'll continue our adventures where they head to Rasmus Tower with hopes of finding out about this girl with devil blood in her that you could totally use the descendants of. Anyway, so see you in a little bit, folks. We'll be back.